William Regal was the guest on Talk is Jericho this week. For what was supposed to be a discussion about his wrestling career, it ended up turning into a discussion about his medical history and his near-death experiences. So much so that there's going to be a second episode. They'll pump out a second one that focuses more on his wrestling career. But this was incredible to listen to. I never knew the extent of the health issues that he had. I knew about his heart. I knew about his neck. I knew about how sick years and years and years ago he got on that tour of India, which is, I think, why WWE didn't go back to India for so many years. He wasn't the only one to get sick on that tour. I want to say that was maybe 2002. So I knew about certain, episodes like that in his career and in his life, but, the extent of those health issues and how close he came to dying on more than one occasion, it's unbelievable. He talked about getting pericarditis back in the late 90s, which is an inflammation of the protective sac around your heart, and how it can scar up that sac, which is not a good thing. I perked up when I heard that because I ended up in the hospital for 3 days a few years back with pericarditis. I talked about it on the podcast at the time. It was back in 2017. And it was the worst pain that I ever experienced in my life. It was more of a pressure than pain. It felt like an elephant was sitting on my chest. I felt like I was having a heart attack. Apparently it mirrors or can mirror the symptoms of a heart attack. So that's what it felt like. And I can tell you, it does not feel good. So it was very scary to hear him talk about that. And in his case, all that scarring around his heart, the pericardium, over time, it sort of locked down and it started to calcify. He said he broke his neck in a match with Ricky Steamboat in WCW in 1993, and he never knew it. He never knew his neck was broken. All those years, Lord Steven Regal, his debut in the WWF, everything, he had a broken neck and didn't even know it. Once he figured it out, once he was diagnosed, he needed 4 discs in his neck to be fused together. I mean, it's insane to think that he had a broken neck or fractured neck or whatever for that long and didn't know it, but I think back to Ruby Soho, when she was still Ruby Riott in WWE, and she was gone for a long time because she had double shoulder surgery. She had 2 torn, was it labrums? It was either labrums or rotator cuffs in each arm, and she wrestled that way for 10 years and didn't even know it. The doctor said, "You've had this for a decade." So finally, she had it operated on. But anyway, he had 4 discs in his neck fused together. And then his wound opened up and he was leaking spinal fluid. And so in 2018, fast forward here, he's on a scouting trip for WWE in Costa Rica. He gets dizzy. He gets off the plane. He gets dizzy because of his heart. He says, "I wasn't drinking. I wasn't doing drugs. I was clean by that point, but it had to do with my heart." And he fell down an escalator at the airport. He shattered his left eye socket. He has no memory of the next 3 weeks. Total amnesia. He lost 40% of the vision in his left eye that still hasn't come back. His vision, he says, is mostly gray out of that eye now. He was still having health issues. Months later, he went to the doctor and they saw something on a scan that didn't look right. And it turns out that sac around his heart, just to bring it back around to that sac around his heart had completely calcified. And they told him, if we don't operate to remove the calcified areas, you have less than 6 months left to live. You will not be here 6 months from now. And he had nothing but praise for WWE, saying that they paid for everything, including sending him to a specialist in Atlanta who is one of the premier doctors in the entire country, one of the few to have successfully treated this. He spent 8 weeks in the hospital after that, but he insisted on going home for Christmas. He wanted to be with his family. And that was a mistake. Because on New Year's Day, this would have been 2019, he had been in excruciating pain. He fell out of bed. His wife and his son got him into an ambulance. They rushed him to the hospital, where he then developed sepsis in his leg. He got an infection. And the doctors called his wife to tell her that if we don't amputate this guy's leg right away, he's going to be dead within 24 hours. Lucky for him, it just so happened that the wife of one of his usual doctors, who I guess wasn't in that day. The wife was also a doctor. She overheard that phone call. She was in the background. She heard what was going on, so she tells her husband what's going on. All of a sudden, Regal's regular doctor, he quickly calls into the hospital and he says, don't do this. He stopped them from amputating his leg. And I guess whatever he told them to do, they were able to save the leg. Which just goes to show you that every doctor doesn't necessarily know what the fuck they're talking about. But, listening to him tell these stories, it was about an hour and 20 minutes, the episode. I listened to the entire thing. It gave me anxiety. I felt like I needed a pill when I was done listening to this. It gave me so much anxiety. It's insane. When he was in that hospital and they saved his leg, that all happened days before the NXT TakeOver Blackpool show where Walter debuted. And within 2 months, he was back to doing 500 squats again. So he says now his health is as good as it's been in many, many years, which is great to hear. But, like Scott Hall, Regal is someone who abused his body in a way that it was not meant to be abused. With booze and pills, and he probably should not even be here right now. But we're all very thankful that he is. And I think it's great that he has been able to get this one last run in AEW. I love the pairing with Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson. It's probably my favorite thing right now on AEW television. Thunder Rosa won the AEW Women's Championship from Britt Baker in their steel cage match Wednesday night in Rosa's hometown of San Antonio. 1 year after their Lights Out match, they headlined their second Dynamite show together. They brought back the blood. They brought back the thumbtacks, which I could do without. It was a great moment, and I don't think we're done with these two. I think we do get one more match before Rosa moves on to somebody else. Britt probably goes on to fight Jamie Hayter, who it's very clear there's a split waiting to happen right there between those two. And I think Serena Deeb could be next after that to challenge Rosa for the championship. She's been doing these 5-minute professor challenges on Rampage, and I know she's got her feud with Hikaru Shida right now. And maybe Shida will win. Maybe Shida will get her revenge on Serena. She'll win the feud, but I don't know. I feel like Rosa and Serena is a program and a match I would like to see for that women's title. The Hardys had their first match at AEW against Private Party on Wednesday night. Jeff, the story of this guy's fucking career, incredibly over in the building. This man can do no wrong. The people love Jeff Hardy. And look, he and Matt, they're both moving a lot slower than they used to. They're also older. They're in their 40s, so that's to be expected. When they're this popular, they don't have to be quick like they used to be. They can play the greatest hits, and the fans are going to eat it up. They're an attraction. Jeff coming in has breathed new life into Matt's career. The best thing to ever happen to Matt Hardy's career is Jeff Hardy coming into AEW.